Hi everyone. So today we will discuss nervous system. Especially we will discuss about the central nervous system that consists of brain and spinal cord. So we will start with the brain today. It's just a review that based on anatomy or structure, nervous system can be divided into two types. The first one is called the central nervous system, or CNS, that consists of brain and the spinal cord. And the neurons that's located in the CNS are the interneuron. So all the neurons that are located in the brain and the spinal cord is called the interneurons. And the function of this interneuron is for processing. Okay, so this is the processing center. The second type of nervous system is called the peripheral nervous system, or PNS. Okay, and this PNS consists of nerve. Okay, there are total 86 nerves that consists of 24 or 12 pairs of cranial nerve and 62 or 31 pairs of spinal nerve. And the neurons that located in this nerve are the sensory neurons, the one that carry sensations from receptor to the CNS, and the motor neuron, which is the neuron that carry order from the CNS to the effector. Okay, so there are three types of neurons based on function: interneuron, sensory neuron, and motor neurons. So the function of this PNS, or the nerve, is connecting receptor to CNS and CNS to the effector. So again, today we will focus on CNS, central nervous system. We start with the brain. Okay, and this is just a review about the 5 components of nervous system. So this is how the nervous system works. We receive the stimulus, and that stimulus will be received by the receptor. So this is going to be the first component, which is the receptor. Okay, so receptor will receive the stimulus, and then the stimulus will be carried into the CNS by the second component, which is the sensory neurons. The sensory neuron. So if the stimulus consciously received, it will be processed by somatic nervous system. So the sensory neuron that will carry that information to the CNS will be part of the sensory receptor or sensory neuron of the somatic nervous system. It will be consciously received, and then it will be processed by the interneuron in the CNS, whether in the brain or the spinal cord. So for the somatic, mostly the process will be in the brain, especially in the cerebral cortex. So if it is coming from the visceral receptor, it will be processed by the autonomic nervous system. It will also carried by the sensory neuron into the CNS. And the process will be most likely present in the lower part of the brain, which is the hypothalamus and the brainstem. This is for the ANS. Now, after the interneuron, the third component over here performing the process, then it will produce the order or response. The response or order will be carried by the fourth component, which is the motor neurons. This is the motor division. If it is somatic nervous system, then the information or order will be carried into the skeletal muscles, okay, which is the voluntary effector over here. So this is the only voluntary effector, which is the skeletal muscle, and we can really order the skeletal muscle to perform contraction. Okay. If it is part of the ENS, then the order will be carried into effector, which is the involuntary effector. We don't really order them to do, we cannot really order them to perform the action. They will perform the action by themselves automatically. So therefore, this is part of the autonomic nervous system or the ENS. Okay, so this is the fifth component, which is the effector. So start from receptor, sensory neurons, the interneuron in the CNS, and then motor neuron, and the effector over here. So this is how the nervous system works. Okay, and then the CNS over here consists of the brain and the spinal cord, and the PNS consists of this nerve, 86 total nerve, okay, on the left side and on the right side of our body. Okay, again, for the central nervous system, okay, so for this CNS, okay, again consists of brain and the spinal cord. Brain is the largest and the most complex portion of the nervous system. Okay, so this is the largest part, and it has the most number of neurons, the interneurons over there. Brain control almost everything, including sensation, perception, movement, thinking, our behavior, memory, they all will be controlled by the brain. Brain consists of two cerebrum, which is cerebral hemispheres, diencephalon, brainstem, and cerebellum. So this is the four main part of the brain. Okay, and the brainstem connect the brain to the spinal cord. So brain and the spinal cord is actually one organ. So the spinal cord is actually continuation of the brain. Both brain and spinal cord connect to the PNS, okay, peripheral nervous system, or the nerve, with the organs called the nerve. And the brain and the spinal cord, they are covered by membranes. It's called the meninges, and this meninges has 3 layers. Okay, so meninges are 3 layers or membranes that protect the brain and the spinal cord. Okay, so if you see over here, as the nervous system actually consists only 3 organs, okay, which is the brain, that's the first organ, spinal cord, that's the second organ, and the nerve. So 3 organs of nervous system: brain, spinal cord, and the nerve. Now the meninges, which is the 3 layer of membranes that protect the brains and the spinal cord. Again, just remember, brain and spinal cord is actually one organs. Okay, so we separate them in order to easier to study brain and spinal cord separately, but they are actually one organ. Therefore, they are protected by the same membrane. It's called the meninges. This meninges consists of 3 layers. The outer layer is called the dura mater, and this is tough, dense connective tissue. This layer usually attached to the cranium, okay, cranial bones. They have epidural space, and then the second layer is called the arachnoid mater. Okay, it's called arachnoid because it has web-like structure in it. This is the middle layer, so the web-like arachnoid, okay, the spider layer, and it has space. It's called the subarachnoid space, and this space contains a very important liquid or fluid for the brain and spinal cord. Is called the CSF, okay, cerebrospinal fluid. And the last layer or the inner layer is called the pia mater, and this is the layer that attaches directly to the brain and the spinal cord. So this is actually part of the brain and the spinal cord directly. And this layer contains blood vessel and the nerve. And this pia mater nourishing the brain and the spinal cord, the CNS. So these are the 3 layers of meninges that protect the brain and the spinal cord. And just remember also, inside that layer, there is a special, very important fluid. It's called the CSF that also give the nutrients for the brain and the spinal cord. Okay, so we're gonna focus in the CSF now. As cerebrospinal fluid. This is fluid that protect the brain and the spinal cord. Okay, so in this layer over here, so this layer has, this meninges have 3 layers, and between the arachnoid and the pia mater, there is a space that fill with the CSF. So it's covering the whole outside part of the brain and also the spinal cord. Okay, it is all filled with the CSF. Okay, not only that, CSF is actually also fill the inside part of the brain. So this is also filled with the CSF. So brain and the spinal cord is actually floating between 2 fluid. Okay, CSF outside the brain and CSF inside the brain. So the one that is inside the brain, they are located in the place is called the ventricle. Okay, so ventricles are space inside the brain that contains the CSF. There are 4 ventricles of the brain in the brain. The first one is called the lateral ventricle, which is left side and the right side. So this is gonna be left ventricle, and this is the right lateral ventricle. So this is 1 and 2 ventricle. The third ventricles will be here. Okay, This is the third ventricle, okay, located right in the middle of the brains, okay. And the fourth ventricle is close to the brain stem, which is this one over here. So this is the fourth ventricle, the chamber that have CSF. Okay, so CSF, they are continuously produced and also reabsorbed. Okay, the productions and the reabsorptions will be constant. Okay, like for example, it's produced about 20 milliliter per day, and it will be also reabsorbed about 20 milliliter per day. So the productions and the reabsorption will be equal. Okay, so let me see. So this is important here over here. Okay, there are some baby that born with this condition. Is called the hydrocephalus. So hydro means water, cephalus means head. So their head is actually filled of water because what? Because the production is actually more or faster than the reabsorption. So therefore the head become really big because it's filled with water, so water on the brain. And they usually need kind of surgery or treatment to take the water out from their head. Okay, so this is an abnormality that presents on some baby. So it's going to be very painful for them because actually their brain will be pressed against their cranial bones. Okay, so the brain is the center, okay, for almost all the actions in our body and also sensations, perception that we receive in our body. So this is the center for all activity, okay, center for sensations and also action. Okay, sensations, perceptions, it will be given by this brain. And also this is the one that comment or order the effectors like muscle and gland to perform their action. Okay, so sensations and motor functions over here. And also brains have what we call the mental functions such as learning, memory, reasoning. They are also controlled by the brain. This is the neural center for coordinations of muscle movement. And this is also the one that regulate our visceral organs, soft organs inside our body, like the heart, the lungs, the kidney, and all other organs inside our body. They will be controlled by the brains also. The brain also control our behavior, personality. This is all controlled by the brain. And because it's very important organ, these organs will be protected by bones, the heart organs. Okay, there are 8 bones that actually protect the brain. Okay, this is the 8 bone, is the 8 cranial bone, like frontal, 2 parietal, 2 temporal, 1 occipital bone, sphenoid and ethmoid bones. So these 8 bones protects the brain. And then also remember it is protected by 3 layers of meninges, durameter, arachnoid, and piameter. And between that layer, there is also protection from weight by the CSF, okay, cerebrospinal fluid. So this is a very good protection for our brain. Now the brain development, okay, when it is developed, there are only 3 parts of the brain, actually. Forebrain, which is in the front part, the midbrains in the middle part, and the hindbrain, which is the back part of the brain. So these are the 3 parts of the brain during development. The forebrain, okay, the front part of this brain, will make or become cerebrum and also diencephalon. So diencephalon and cerebrum develop from the forebrain. The midbrain will remain as a midbrain, and later this midbrain will become part of the brainstem. Okay, so brainstem. And the hindbrains, the back part of the brains, it will develop into cerebellum. And the other part of the brainstem, which is pons and medulla oblongata. Okay, so pons, medulla oblongata, and midbrain is actually part of the brainstem in the mature brain. So this is the mature brains consists of 4 main parts. The biggest part is called cerebrum, okay, developed from the forebrain. And the second part is cerebellum. Okay, this is developed from the hindbrain. And the third part is diencephalon, which is also developed for the forebrain. Okay. And the last part is called the brainstem, which is developed mostly from the hindbrain, which is the pons and medulla oblongata, and the other part developed from the midbrain. So these are the 4 main parts of the brain. Again, the biggest part over here is the cerebrum. The middle part, this is the diencephalon. Cerebellum on the back. And the last part that will continue as spinal cord is the brain stem. Okay, so cerebrum, diencephalon, cerebellum, and the brain stem. Okay, cerebrum, diencephalon, cerebellum, and the brainstem. Now, if we look at the classification or structure of these brains, okay, so the biggest part, which is the cerebrum, it will be divided later into 4 lobes. Okay, the frontal lobes, the parietal lobe, the temporal lobe, and the occipital lobe on the back. The diencephalons, it has 3 main parts. The biggest part over here is the thalamus. Then there will be hypothalamus under it. And there will be epithalamus on the back of the pineal gland. And then for the cerebellum, this is on the back over here. The brain stem will be consist of the midbrain, and then the pons, the biggest part of the brainstem, and the medulla oblongata that will continue as a spinal cord. Okay, we start with the first and biggest part of the brain, which is the cerebrum. So this is the largest part of the brain, consists of two hemispheres, which is left and right hemisphere. Okay. And it is separated by tissue called the falx cerebri. The corpus callosum is the tissue that connect the two cerebral hemispheres. There is a part called the gyrus, which is ridges or hill, okay, or mountain, and sulcus, which is grooves or valley. So there will be hill and valley structure on the cerebrum. And then there is the deeper sulcus is called the fissurus or fissura. This is the one that separates. Okay, this is longitudinal grooves or sulcus that separate the left and the right cerebral hemisphere. And there is also tissue that separates cerebrum and cerebellum on the back. So we're gonna see that picture of cerebrum. Okay, it is divided into 4 main lobes. The front part is called the frontal lobes. And these frontal lobes mostly used for activities, for action. So this is action, the one that control actions or motor function. The back part it consists of parietal lobes, occipital lobes, and the temporal lobes. So this is mostly, we can put here as the divisions. Okay, this is the front part and this is the back part. Then most of the back part is used for sensation. So this is sensory functions, mostly located on the back part of the brain. Like parietal lobes, temporal lobe, mostly used for taste, sensations, smells, and hearing. The occipital lobe over here, mostly used for sensations of vision. Right? So these are the 4 main lobes of the cerebrum. So if you see this cerebrum, it has hill and valley, and then hill, valley, hill, valley, hill, valley. Okay, so the hill over here is called Gyrus, mountain. Okay, and the valley is called sulcus. Okay, now the sulcus that separate front part and the back part of the brain. So this valley over here, it is called the central sulcus. Yeah, so the central sulcus separates the frontal lobes with the 3 other back lobes, okay, the parietal lobes. And if you see this from the middle, then you see this deeper sulcus that separate right and left hemispheres of the brain. And this is what we call the fissura, okay, longitudinal fissura. So this separate the two brain hemispheres, okay, left and right hemisphere of the brain. So we have gyrus, sulcus, fissura, and this is central sulcus, the one that separates front and the back part. Okay, so this is front, this is back of the brain. Okay, so this is gonna be better picture for looking at sulcus and gyrus. Okay, so again, gyrus is the heel. So this is the heel, and sulcus is the valley. Okay, so valley, heel, valley, and heel. If we see the cross sections of the brains, then you will find this area over here is gray matter. Okay, so gray matter or darker color, because this is actually the place for the cell body. So if it is neuron, the cell body will be here, and the axon will be on the white matter. So gray color or gray matter mean there is a cell body. It means that this is actually the processing center, because cell body of neuron is the one that process everything. So the gray matters of the brain, which is area, is called the cerebral cortex. Okay, the cortex means bark of the brain. And this bark of the brain or cerebral cortex will be the place for processing, because the cell body of neurons located in this cerebral cortex. The white matter, okay, is going to be white color over here, is going to be used by the axon. Okay, so this is actually axon. So thousands of axon or fibers will be located in the cerebral white matter. And there will be no process in the white matter, because axon function is for carry information or order. So this is just like a track, okay, like a pathway that carry information or carry order to the brain or from the brain. So again, the processing center of the brain will be in the area is called the cerebral cortex or gray matter. Okay, so again, the gray matter over here, which is the cerebral cortex, is going to be the processing center. Okay, while the white matters of the brains, this is consists of axon. Okay, so this is going to be used as a track that carry information or order. So axon in the white matter, the cell body will be on the gray matter. So this is how the brains divided into portions, which is the gray matter portion for processing and the white matter portion for carry information or order. Okay, as you see over here, the white matter, which is the fiber that carry information or order, you see over here is just kind of fiber, 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 fiber. This is actually axon of the neuron. And then this top of here will be where the nucleus located, or the cell body located, and this is the gray matter. Okay, so gray matter in the cortex, in the bark. In the middle part, mostly white matter or fiber of axon. Okay, there are three types of fiber or axon. The first one here, association fiber. Okay, this is the fiber that connect the cell body of neurons, okay, between gyrus or gyri within the same hemispheres, left and left. Okay, so this is association fiber. And the second fiber is called the commissural fiber. Okay, connect the cell body of neurons from one hemisphere to another hemisphere. Okay, so over here, one for left and right. So just like a bridge between left and right hemispheres of the brain. And the last one is projection fiber. This is the one that run up and down, okay, from the spinal cord to the cerebrum. Okay, so this is connect the cell body of neuron from descending and ascending track. Okay, so from spinal cord to the brain, or from the brain to the spinal cord. That's the projection axon or fibers. Now the four main lobes of cerebrum. Again, the frontal part should be here, okay? Starting from here. This is a special gyrus over here, different color. This front is called the frontal lobes. Again, mainly for action. So this is the action. And in the frontal lobe, there is a special gyrus over here. So from the top until the bottoms, and this gyrus is called the pre-central gyrus. Okay, and this pre-central gyrus have a very important function to control movement of our skeletal muscle. So all the skeletal muscles in our body, for example, if we move our hand, our legs, this will be controlled by this pre-central gyrus. And then the back part, this is the parietal lobes. Okay, again, this is mostly for sensations. So this is sensory. Sensations, and also in this back lobes, part of the parietal lobes, there is a special gyrus. It's called the post-central gyrus. Okay, so this post-central gyrus is the one that controls sensation from the skin in all over our body. Okay, there will be map, for example, from the back of our body will be here, from the face area will be here, for example. Okay, so it's called the post-central gyrus. The name is actually based on the sulcus over here location. So you see, this is the central sulcus, the sulcus or the valley that divided the front part and the back part of the brain. So the gyrus that's located in the front of the central sulcus will be named as pre-central gyrus, which is pre mean before, before the central sulcus, and this is the gyrus. Right? After the sulcus, the central sulcus, the name will be pos. So after central sulcus, gyrus. So this is post-central gyrus. Okay, so this is two important gyrus. Okay, the pre-central gyrus and the post-central gyrus, the one that mostly control our body over here. The back part for sensation, the front part for skeletal muscle action. The back part of the brain, it has special lobe, it's called the occipital lobe. And these occipital lobes used for vision. So this is the area for controlling our visions. So what we see, it will be controlled or sent by this occipital lobe. And then the fourth lobes will be on the side, okay, left and right. This is called the temporal lobes. And then temporal lobe has several sensations. So remember, this is also on the back part of the brain, will be mostly sensory function. This area over here is for hearing sensations. If you hear something, it will be processed in this area. And then there will be a vernical area over here. This is actually the one that stands for taste, okay, and also connected to the front area over here is called the Broca area. Remember, the front area is for action, so Broca area is actually action for speech. So when you are speaking or talking, it is actually ordered by this Broca area. But Broca area also have sensation part on the back, which is called the Wernicke's area. This is the one that gives us the sensations about what we are talking. So it's give you perceptions, thinking what you're gonna talk, and etc. So it has sensation area and also action area for speech. This area, remember, this is front, will be action. So this is actually the one that control movement of our eyes. So movement of our eyes over here, but the sensations, the process of what we see is actually on the back part over here. Okay, so action on the front part and sensations on the back part. So this is action and sensation for vision. Okay. The front part is also used for higher brain functions, like for example, for learning, concentration, planning, problem solving, answering questions. They're all controlled by the frontal lobe of the brain. Okay, now we're going to see the summary of this area. Again, the motor area will be on the mainly on the frontal lobes, okay, frontal area of the brain. There is a special area or gyrus is called the precentral gyrus. And this is the one that control all our voluntary muscle movement in our body, like our hand, our leg, okay? Mouth, for example. Okay? This will be controlled by this specific area or gyrus. Is called the precentral gyrus. Therefore, it's called the primary motor area. And also in the frontal lobes, there is a special area that control our speech. It's called the Broca speech area. This is the one that control our speech. And there is a special control for eye movement. It's called the frontal eye field. Okay, this is also the one that control movement of our eyes, okay, so this is the frontal eye area, the frontal for speech area, and this is the control area for our muscles, skeletal muscle. On the back part is called the sensory area, mostly sensation. And the main sensation area or control area for any stimulus that come to our skin will be processed here. It's called the post-central gyrus. So this is the cutaneous, mean the skin. Okay? So all the stimulus that come to our skins will be controlled by this post-central gyrus. So this is the primary somatosensory area. They're also going to be conscious. Okay, it's a conscious sensation. You can feel it. Okay, you know it. You recognize that you have that sensation. And then there is a sensory speech area and the Wernicke's area. And this area will work together with the Broca speech area, or motor and sensory work together over here to give you the meaningful speech. Okay? And then on the back, which is on the occipital lobes, there will be visual area. This is main area to control our vision, okay, to receive the or give the interpretations about what we see. Like color, for example, give you the blue color, black, red, and etc. will be processed by this occipital lobe, the visual area. And there is special area also in the temporal lobe. It's called the auditory area. This is for hearing. Okay, what you hear will be processed by this auditory area in the temporal lobes, on the side lobes. And then there will be area for taste. So what we eat, what we taste will be controlled by this sensory area for the taste. This is actually a little bit inside of the brain, in the middle. The area is called the insula. Okay. And then for the smell, it's gonna be in the temporal lobe, but it's gonna be also inside in the middle area. So in the bottom middle area of the temporal lobes will be used for this smell sensation. So these are the sensory area, which is sensations. And the front part all is going to be for motor or for action. I'm going to show you the map of the actions. So this is actions. The voluntary action is mean that the action that we really can control it. Okay? So remember this one, this is actually the pre-central gyrus. Okay. Over here. So this is the pre-central gyrus. And this gyrus from the top to the bottom over here is the one that control all our skeletal muscle actions in our body. If you see over here the map, this area on the top control the movement of our muscle on the leg. This area controls some movements on our back, like for example bending our body and etc. So if you see here, the area is really small, while our body is actually really big, but it's controlled by small area of the brain, because there are not many movements that we can perform in our body, right? And then look at this, the arms and the hand, finger, and etc. It actually has a very big area of the brain, the precentral gyrus, that control that action. So it means that we actually able to perform many skill movements from the hand, fingers, because it's controlled by bigger part of the brain. The same thing with the mouth area over here. So we can actually control our mouth better than controlling of our muscles on the back, because it has bigger area of the brain that control this action. Okay, so this is the map of muscle that controlled by part of the brain. So if, for example, there is a problem with the hand movement over here, if you are a brain surgeon, you will perform surgery in this area, right? Not on the top area of the brain over here, because if you do, then it might causing problem with the leg or foot movement. Okay, so this is for motor area, which is action in the precentral gyrus. Now we're gonna go to the back gyrus over here, the yellow one, which is the postcentral gyrus. And this is for sensation. Any sensation that we receive in our skin will be controlled by this postcentral gyrus. Okay? And again, there is also map. Okay? So if somebody touch you on the leg, for example, you're gonna control or give the interpretation of that sensation, whether touching or maybe pain. It will be in this area. On the back also has a very little area, right? And the hand is a bigger area for sensation. Therefore, the hand over here is considered as more sensitive compared to our back. So this is very sensitive area. Okay, therefore you gonna use your hand, for example, to touch something, because you have a lot of sensory information over here. The same thing with the lips over here. This bigger lip over here doesn't mean that this person has bigger lip, but it means that the lips is a very sensitive area in our body, because touching this area will give you the very good sensations, right? So this is sensitive area also. Okay, so again, this is the map of sensations in our skin, which is controlled by the back part of gyrus, is called the postcentral gyrus. Okay, this is for sensation area, while the precentral gyrus, this is for action of our skeletal muscle. So just remember that information. Okay, precentral gyrus is for motor action, skeletal muscle action, and the postcentral gyrus is for sensations in our skin of the whole body. In addition of motor area and sensory area, there is also area is called the association area. So this is the one that control for both motor and sensory. So this is kind of associating any information. The frontal lobe association area, and again, remember the frontal lobe is association area for planning, okay, concentrations, problem solving, readings, behavior, judging, and any other action related to actions. Higher brain control will be done in the area called the frontal lobe association area. Okay, so when we talk, for example, the way we talk, the behavior, what the wisdom that we produce in our speech, for example, it is control or coming from this area. Okay, and then there is a parietal lobe association area. This is also For speech area, this is the Wernicke's area. So when we do speech, we not only speak, we not only say something, but we say something with a good speech, wisdom, kindness, etc. Okay, so this is association area. And then there is a temporal lobe association area. So mostly temporal lobe is for hearing, smells, and taste. Okay, it's going to be related to some associations with that condition, and also visual, music, complex patterns will be also done in the association area. Occipital lobes, remember this is visual area. Okay, so this occipital lobe mostly associate what you see with things that you're gonna do, or things or behavior related to what you see. It will be also controlled by this area. And insula, this is actually called the fifth lobe, okay, because this is actually under the other lobe, so we cannot really see from outside. So this is some information used for emotions control. So this is a very good map of what part of the brains and what they do. Okay, like for example, again, this one, number 1, 2, 3. Okay, this is the pre-central gyrus. Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. This is the front is actually here. Okay, so I don't see the front part. Okay, so this is the front. So this is front. This is back. Okay, so this is opposite than we have on the previous vector. So this is the central sulcus. So this is gonna be back part. So I'm gonna talk about this one first. The number 4 over here. This is the pre-central gyrus. This is the one that control all skeletal muscle movement in our body. And 1, 2, 3 over here is pre-central gyrus. This is the one that sense, okay, control sensation that coming to our skin, okay, the whole body. This is association area. Okay, this is the frontal lid. This is the one that move our eyeballs. Okay, this is broadcast speech. Again, this is still in the frontal lobe. This is the one that move our tongue when we speak. What we speak will be controlled by this broadcast speech area. This is auditory area. This is going to be on the back of the brain. Okay, in the temporal lobe, this is for hearing sensation. What we hear will be interpreted here. And this is occipital lobe. This is the visual area. What we see will be processed here. This is visual association area. This is Wernicke's area, which is connected to the broadcast speech area over here. So speech, and this is sensation of speech. Okay. Somatosensory association area is going to be motor association area over here. This is for learning, judging behavior, okay, answering the question, problem solving will be done in this part of the brain. Okay, so you can read this area and you can see the number over here. Okay, so you can connect with the previous picture. So 1, 2, 3 is post-central gyrus. Remember number 4 over here is pre-central gyrus for actions. Okay? And then auditory 42. Okay. Taste gustatory is 43 on the map, on the picture before this PowerPoint, before this screen. A visual area, which is on the back, okay, occipital lobe. These motor actions, precentral gyrus, and broca speech area 44 and 45. And this is some association area where there are somatosensory association area or maybe motor association area. So there is also important information about our brains. It's called the hemispheric laterizations. So our brain is actually have two area or hemispheres, left and right. This is what you have to know, that the right part of the brain is actually control the left part of our body. So there is a cross controlling. Okay, right brain control left side of our body. The left brain control the right side of our body. Okay, if somebody touch you on the left hand, for example, it will be processed by the right brain, okay, the right hemisphere. So that's the general control. Left control the right. Now, this is another information about special function of these hemispherics, okay, or the part of the brain. The left part, okay, mostly controlling for speech, writing, reading, verbals, analytical, so math, computations. This kind of skill will be controlled by the left brain. And the right brain mostly control non-verbal tasks, okay? Music, art. This will be done by the right hemispheres, right part of the brain. So just for information that most people is actually using the left brain, okay, normally. So this is what we call the dominant hemisphere. That's the reason why most people is actually right-handed, because they use mostly the left brain. Okay? The non-dominant hemisphere, which is the right brain, is going to be less people that actually using this right brain. So that's the reason why it's going to be less people that is left-handed. Okay, so this is just for information. So like our skill mostly done by the left brain. There is a special area of the cerebrum. It's called the basal ganglia. And this one is actually control our voluntary movement of our skeletal muscle. Okay, so it's not only the pre-central gyrus, but there is also some control coming from the basal ganglia or basal nuclei that control our voluntary functions of our skeletal muscle. So if somebody have problem with this area, for example, there's a damage in the basal ganglia, like people with Parkinson's disease, they will not be able to control their voluntary muscle movement. So they usually will move, their muscle will move automatically. So it can be a little bit difficult to control their voluntary movement of their skeletal muscle if they have problem with this basal ganglia. And the disease is called the Parkinson disease. There is another area, it's called the limbic system. This is actually part of cerebrum and diencephalon. And this limbic system is also known as emotional brains. So this is the one that controls many emotional and primitive aspects of behavior, including happiness, sadness, and also memory. So this area, there is an area called the hippocampus. It's good for long-term memory. There is another area, it's called the amygdala, and this is also save some memory that related to emotion. Okay. So this is area that known as the emotional or primitive brain. Now we go to the second part of the brain. It's called the diencephalon. And diencephalon consists of three main structures. The biggest one is called the hypothalamus. Over here, that is the biggest part. And the bottom part under the hypothalamus, there is area called the hypothalamus. Okay, so thalamus, hypothalamus. And there is area on the back is called the epithalamus, and sometimes it's also known as a pineal gland. So this is epithalamus or pineal gland. So these are the three parts of the diencephalon. We're going to see the function of each part of this diencephalon. We start with the biggest part, the thalamus. It has a very important function for sensations. Okay, so all the sensation before going to the cerebral cortex, it will go to the thalamus first. So if somebody touch you, for example, in the skin, then information will be carried into the spinal cord. The interneuron in the spinal cord will carry that information to the thalamus first. So this is the relay station, okay, to sort any sensations that will go to the cerebral cortex. Okay, so there is connection, okay, for the sensation, receptor, spinal cord, then it will go to the thalamus. After going to the thalamus, then the information will go to the cerebral cortex. Okay, so again, the thalamus function mainly for relay station or relay sensory information before going to the cerebral cortex. The hypothalamus, okay, so it's going to be lower part over here of the diencephalon. Mostly, this is the one that links the nervous system and the endocrine system. It controls some hormonal secretions. It also controls some sensations in our body, like for example, sense for control for body temperature, water and electrolyte balance, hunger, body weight, and some movement of gland and secretions of hormones. So this is the function of the hypothalamus. So again, hypothalamus is the center for connection between nervous system and the endocrine system. The next one, the epithalamus or the pineal gland, it's going to be on the back over here. Okay? And this pineal gland produces hormone is called the melatonin that stimulates sleep, okay, or sleepiness. And this is the one that also controls our biological clock. Okay, so our rhythm, daily rhythm, will be controlled by this epithalamus. And as I mentioned before, limbic system is also included in the diencephalon. This is actually also part or associated with the cerebrum. And this is the emotional brain or primitive type of brains that control for our emotions, including memory. Okay. And the association area of diencephalons, we already mentioned about the limbic system. This is associated with the cerebrum. And then there is another area, it's called the CVO, circumventricular organs, that consists of hypothalamus, the pineal glands, and the pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is actually endocrine system. Okay, part of the endocrine system, hormonal system. Okay, so these three organs, hypothalamus, pineal gland, and pituitary gland, make a system is called the CVO. Okay? The function of CVO is the one that connect or control between nervous system and the endocrine system. So mostly, okay, is actually nervous system will control the endocrine system, because nervous system is actually system that control almost everything in our body, including controlling the hormonal function over here, the endocrine system. Okay, the third part of the brain, the cerebellum, it is located on the back, so over here. So it's actually consists of two hemispheres, cerebral hemisphere and pharynx, okay, pharynx in the middle. So two hemispheres connected by the pharynx. The main functions of the cerebellum is for coordination of skeletal muscle activity, especially for the skill function or skills movement. So if we have skills like swimming, riding a bike, or skill in other things that we do, it is mostly controlled by the cerebellum. Okay? The first we do, usually, skill thing that we do, usually it's difficult, but when we do it over and over and over, then we become skillful on that action. So that time when we are becoming skillful, mostly the action will be controlled by the cerebellum. Okay, so that's the main functions of the cerebellum. The other function is also to control our balance, okay, our posture, whether we work nicely, we work normally, will be controlled by this cerebellum. Okay, so maintain our posture, our movement, our dynamic balance will be in this area, the cerebellum area. Someone that have infections, bacterial infection like syphilis, they actually have problems when they walk. They walk like drunken, people, jerky walking, because there is a problem with their connection into the cerebellum. So the syphilis bacteria, which is the Treponema pallidum, is actually damage their posterior columns on the spinal cord, and posterior column is the one that carry sensations of balance, okay, from our body, from our joint, for example, into our cerebellum. If that connections is damaged by the bacteria, then that person will not be able to work correctly. So they're walking like, people that drunk. Okay, so this is the cerebellum function. And the last one, okay, the last part of the brain is called the brain stem. Okay? This is the one that connect the brain to the spinal cord. And this area actually have a very important function, especially for the ANS, okay, autonomic nervous system. because this is the one that control like our breathing, our heart beating, sneezings, coughing, and other things that we do automatically, mostly control in this brain stem. There are three parts: midbrain, pons, this is the biggest part, and the medulla oblongata, and this is the last part that connect to the spinal cord. Now the functions. Look at this midbrain over here. This is help control some subconscious muscle activity, connecting the cortex and cerebellum. Okay, and this is also central for some visual and auditory reflexes. Okay, so vision reflex, hearing reflex will be also controlled by the midbrain. And then the pons, this is the biggest part. This is part of this is to control our respiration, especially during forced respiration, because the other normal control will be in this medulla oblongata for respiration. So this is the one that control normal breathing. And then pons also use to carry some sensory information to cerebellum, okay, from the spinal cord. And it has some cranial nerve that are actually going to the side. Okay. Now the medulla oblongata, this is maybe the most important part of the brainstem because this is the one that control our heart. So this is the CV center, cardiovascular center, control our heart beating, okay, control the diameter of blood vessel, okay, blood pressure is also controlled here. Information in and out to cerebellum will be also go to this medulla oblongata. This is the control for some reflex like sneezing, swallowing, coughing. It is controlled by this medulla oblongata. So you see this one, this is a heart beating, this is breathing. This is two actions that we have to do it over and over, right? So this is the reason why it's really important. If this medulla oblongata is broken, somebody might die because of it. So this is really important. It is very dangerous that, you know, someone hit on their neck and this area, the medulla oblongata, being hit or damaged, they might be die because of, you know, stop heart beating or stop breathing. Okay, so this is the area that control again the ANS, autonomic nervous system. Okay, there are some association area in the brainstem. Mostly it's called the RAS, reticular activating system. The system has functions to arouse the cortex, the cerebral cortex. Okay, so when this RAS system is not affected, then the cerebral cortex mostly will be not affected also. When this RAS system active, then the cerebral cortex will be active too. Okay, so this RAS will also alert the cerebral cortex about sensory signal that coming. Okay? Like for example, when you sleep, the RAS will be sleep. Then when you hear the alarms, okay, then you're gonna be wake up. And when you wake up, it will alert the cerebral cortex that you are waking up. Okay? So this is the main alert system for the cerebral cortex. It is also maintain the consciousness, keep you awake with the stimulus from the ear, the eyes, the skin, and muscle. So the one that go to the cerebral cortex to activate your activity will start with this RAS first. Okay? And then also it has a motor functions to maintain some muscle tone. Okay. decrease the activity, causing us to be sleepy. That's the reason why some people take caffeine, for example, drink coffee. When they drink coffee, it usually will activate the RAS, and at the end will activate the cerebral cortex. Now we're going to learn a little bit about sleep. So sleep, there are two types of sleep. The first one is called the non-rapid eye movement, non-REM sleep. Okay. And the second one is called the rapid eye movement sleep, or REM sleep. Okay, so the non-rapid eye movement or non-REM sleep, so we can see when some people sleep, their eyes is stay, the eyelid is stay. It has four stages. Okay, stage one, this is the first stage when the person start to be sleepy. So it's drifting off, the eye close the first minute, and then it's go to the stage two. They might have some fragment of dream. Okay. Stage three, they are very relaxed, moderately sleep, not in the deep sleep yet, maybe about 20 minutes. They might go back to stage two, to stage one, and then go back again to stage three, for example, and go to the stage number four, which is the deep sleep. And this is when the bedwetting and sleepwalking occur, usually in this stage four. Sometimes people also have what we call the rapid eye movement sleep. This is when they have many dream, or maybe dream that scary dreams. Okay, the heart respiratory rate is actually irregular, sometimes increasing, the heart rate increasing. So this is during rapid eye movement sleep. Sleep cycle, the first 90 minutes of sleep, usually from stage 1 to 4 non-REM. When maybe go up to this fragments of dream over here, and then they might go to the non-REM sleep again, or they might go to the rapid eye movement type of sleep. Okay, so the cycle will repeat until the rapid eye movement sleep total about 90 to 120 minutes. Okay, it's about 2 hour REM sleep. Okay, this is the encephalograph, and this graph telling you the activity during sleep. It is awake. So this is when we awake. If you see this graph is very noisy, very busy, so the brain is actually really active. Okay, and then non-REM stage 1, the brain activity a little bit slow. Okay, it's less activity over here. Stage 2 and 3, a little bit even lower activity. Okay, slower activity of the brain. If you see this over here, stage number 4, in the deep sleep, the activity of brain is really slow. So this is the time when we have a deep sleep, our brain is going to be relaxed. And this wave is called the delta wave. So the slow wave during sleep is called the delta wave. There are some maybe higher activity during the rapid eye movement sleep. It's telling you that the brain is a little bit active during that time. Some sleep disorder. So, like for example, in some of the insomnia, this is actually very rare. This is the one that most common. It's called the insomnia, the inability to fall or remain asleep. About 10% of population might have this problem. Okay? Narcolepsy, this is abnormal REM sleep, okay, causing extreme daytime sleepiness. Okay, so you're going to be sleep or sleepy during the day, about 0.02 to 0.6% population. Obstructive sleep apnea syndrome. So the upper airway collapse repeatedly during sleep, blocking the breathing. Sometimes will produce snore, so snoring. Many people that have many snoring, it might have this type of disorder, okay, sleep apnea. About 4 to 5% of population. Parasomnia, sleepwalking, sleep talking, or might have some night terrors. Less than 5%, especially children. Rapid eye movement sleep behavior disorder. So excessive motor activity during sleep, during REM sleep. So they move back and forth. Sometimes children, yeah, when you put their head on the north, and then when they move, then you will see that their head is going to the south. So this is kind of some problem with this rapid eye movement sleep behavior. This is very rare. Restless leg syndrome. Leg jerk movement during sleep. So the legs move. About 5.5% of population have this problem. Sleep paralysis, inability to move up to few minutes. So, you know, when it's really difficult to move your body, that's when we have the sleep paralysis. It's really difficult to move to the side and etc. So sleep paralysis. Now the brainwave, using the EEG, the electroencephalograph, the alpha wave over here. This is when our brain is active, okay, during wakefulness, and then beta wave is actually measure the activity, the mental activity. So it's gonna be noisy, more noisy compared to the alpha waves. This is showing us that our brain is working very hard over here. So this is mental activity of the brain. The theta or theta wave, mostly in children. This is the wave that also measure during sleep. There is maybe some activity during sleep that can be measured. And this is the delta wave. This is when our brain in rest during deep sleep. Okay, so this is mostly measure the deep sleep. So it's really slow action. So you see that graph over here. It's really slow action. So this is our brain is relaxing. Okay, memory. So there are two types of memory. The first one is called the short-term memory or working memory. Usually we study, we remember things for just several minutes or hours. And then after that, mostly we will forget that. So this is what we call the short-term memory. The next one is called the long-term memory, which is stay in our brains for a long time, even lifetime memory. So this is most of the long-term memory they associated with emotion. So they will store in the amygdala and hippocampus of the brain. So this is area for storing the long-term memory. Some clinical traumatic brain injury. There are several types. Okay, maybe concussions, okay, mild, typically result from one-time injury, has no lasting symptom. Contusion, this is bruisings of brain. Okay. If it is less than 5 minutes, sometimes it can cause unconsciousness. Laceration, this is damage or tearing part of the brain, maybe because of fracture or maybe bullets. Okay. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy or CTE, mostly sport related, causing from sport damage during sport like boxing, for example, or football. Okay. Blast related brain injury, it may be resulting from exposure combat situations. Stroke. Okay, so stroke is when our brain do not get enough oxygen, so might causing death, okay, after heart attack or cancer. If it is not helped right away, so it can cause death to the patient. Two types of stroke, maybe ischemic. This is the most common type where the blood circulation is decreased and there is blockage in the coronary circulations artery, common carotid artery that will block the circulation of blood to the brain, or maybe because of hemorrhagic. This is due to the burst of the vessels or blood vessels in the brain. It's causing the brain do not get enough the blood, especially oxygen. Transient ischemic attack, TIA. Okay, this is episode of temporary cerebral dysfunctions. Okay, may be caused by impaired blood flow to the brain. Symptoms like dizziness, difficult to speech, okay, numbness, paralysis in one side, double vision. Okay. This is some common symptom of the TIA. Alzheimer disease, AD. Okay, they usually forget a lot of things. Okay. This is due to the loss of neuron in specific area. Hippocampus, remember this is area for memory. So when the neurons over there are broken or lost, then the memory will be lost also. Okay. Cerebral cortex area, so their action will be also difficult. Okay. Maybe some plaques deposited in the brain, and maybe some proteins that also causing problems in the brain. So this is AD, and it might develop into dementia. It's loss of reasoning, ability to read, write, talk, eat, and etc. Okay, so Alzheimer's disease can be developed into the dementia, and usually affecting older people. So all over 65, they maybe have this AD or dementia problem. ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, is a learning disorder characterized by poor attention. So usually these individuals only can focus about 5 minutes, and after that they lost their focus. Hyperactivity, right? And sometimes with inappropriate impulsiveness. So this is ADHD. Brain tumor, it's abnormal growth of brain tissue. It may be dangerous, okay, malignant brain tumor, or maybe benign brain tumor. That's all for brain. So we finished our discussion on the central nervous system, especially focus in the brain. So see you on the next lecture.